Welcome back to this channel. Today we are going to talk about heat damage. Kindly you have to listen to this video up to the end because I'm going to share something maybe you have never heard about. So if you really want to grow your hair, if you're on a hair growth journey, if you desire to just have healthy natural hair, then this video is for you. Kindly, I want you to watch and learn something new today. So, we dive straight in, and the first thing that you are going to look at is how heat disrupts the scalp environment. I know you have heard about heat damage. Then, now I want you to know what this heat damage really means. So, chronic heat exposure to the scalp, for example, from flat iron that are held too close to the scalp, hot tools that are applied too close also to the scalp, all excessive hot hair from blow dryers, name all those things, they cause three interconnected problems. Kindly, I want you to listen to this. First, that heat, it damages the sebaceous gland, which produces sebum, the natural oil that replicates the follicle opening and maintains its protective microbiome. Two, it causes chronic low-grade inflammation around the follicle, which is increasingly linked in dermatologically research to follicle mutualization. Third, repeated thermal stress can cause scarring of the follicle over time, a condition called traction. Let's continue getting deeper. So, at temperatures above approximately 60 degrees, keratin proteins begin to denature. Their molecule structure unfolds and reforms differently. So, most styling tools reach around 180 to 230 degrees. On the strands, these manifest as weakened cuticle layers, porosity, and breakage. Scalp surface temperatures during styling can reach 40 to 55 degrees, and with repeated exposure, this thermal stress accumulates in the follicular epithelium, affecting the stem cell niche that replenishes the follicle's regenerative capacity. Now, there is something I want you to learn. I'm very sure you have never heard about this. So, when any living cell experiences abnormal heat, it releases proteins called heat shock proteins. Maybe you have never heard about them. They are called HSPs, heat shock proteins. These proteins, they are essentially cellular emergency responders that try to refund damaged proteins and prevent cell death. Let's get a little bit deeper. Now, in hair follicles, the activation of these heat shock proteins, that is the HSPs, has been directly linked to premature entry into catagen. Think of it this way. The follicles interpret this thermal stress. Remember, the thermal stress is that heat that you are using. So the follicles interpret this thermal stress as the same way it interprets injury on the scalp. And its survival response is to stop growing. Do you get it? So when it stops growing, then it goes into protective dormancy. The strand you were trying to style becomes the signal to pause production entirely. You see, that heat you are using, it becomes a tool, and it becomes a tool to pause the production, that is to pause the growth from continuing. And so that one leads your hair to enter into catagen phase. Remember, during catagen phase, active growth stops. This one is getting a bit interesting. listen to this. Something almost nobody talks about is what chronic heat does to the microbial ecosystem living on your scalp. So, you have never known this, but your scalp hosts a complex community of bacteria and fungi, primarily Cutibacterium acnes and Malassezia species that live in a carefully balanced relationship with your follicles. You hear that? So, heat damages the heat destroys the sebum, which is the primary food source of these microbes. Okay? So, without it, the balance collapses. Beneficial bacteria dies off. Malassezia, which is linked to dandruff and seborrheic dermatitis, can overgrow. The Malassezia can overgrow, and the follicle's local immune environment shifts into a pro-inflammatory state. So far, are you learning something? So, let's see why people with natural hair and chemically treated hair are far more vulnerable to heat damage. So, for people with naturally coily or textured hair, their follicle experiences greater mechanical stress during, for example, when you are heat styling, let's say when you are styling even before you introduce heat. So now when you add heat, the risk compounds. Similarly, chemically relaxed or bleached hairs has had its disulfide bonds broken and reformed. So, meaning the cuticle's structure integrity is already compromised. So heat on already processed hair penetrates deeper towards the cortex and creates more extensive protein denaturation at lower temperatures. Okay, when we talk of protein denaturation, is the process where proteins lose their native three-dimensional structure, specifically their secondary, tertiary, and quarterly structures due to external stress. For example, it can be heat, it can be, pH changes, things like that. Let's go further and see how heat protectants actually work and their real limits. So, heat protectants, they create a thin protective layer over the hair shaft. This means the protective layer absorbs more thermal energy before the temperatures transfers through to the strand. This means they protect the strand from structural damage. Okay, that heat protector will protect the strand from structural damage. They do not meaningfully protect the scalp or the follicle from the thermal stress when tools are held close to the roots. The follicle's protection comes entirely from the technique, the distance, the speed of movement, and the tool temperature. Do you get that? Finally, I will say this. The complete picture that science paints is this. Heat is a psychological stressor with a documented cascade from the strand surface all the way down to the stem cell population that determines whether your follicles keep producing hair at all. The damage is cumulative, largely silent until significant, and at its most severe stage, which is completely irreversible. And so, having said all that, I hope you have learned something new today. If you have enjoyed what I have said, what I have shared, kindly like my video, subscribe to my channel, and let's continue growing and learning together about hair growth.